Hello, welcome to another session of Sustainable Development. Today we won't be very long. I want to just make sure that there are a number of issues that are very clear. Let me start right from the beginning by reminding everyone that we will be having a midterm on October 25. I will send you an email later on about whether it will be on Blackboard or whether I'll send you the questions by email. But either or, the questions will become available at 6:30 p.m. on the 25th. And you must send back your answers by 8:30 of that day. Now, I cannot stress how important this is. If anything is sent after 8:30, I will not read it, it will not be graded, it will not get any credit whatsoever. And it must also be sent to the specific email that I will give you. I'll give it to you right now, but I'll send you probably another another written note, probably either tomorrow or maybe tomorrow and also next week. But I want it to be sent to my KARAM.GHASSAN, that's to say my last name dot my first name at gmail.com. That is at least one thing to get out of the way. The other thing that is important is that I would like you, just in case some of you have fallen behind for one reason or another in the readings, to take advantage of the next 10 days or so in order to catch up with the readings. Because besides the few things that I'm going to talk about right now, which are really essentially reminders, I will send you also tomorrow an email with some of these details, because I'm going to mention a couple of links and what have you. And there will be a blog. I will also post the blog, the article on the blog tomorrow, but there won't be any the week after. And again, as you well know, that there won't be even a reading assignment for the week after. So you do have these 10 days or so in order to try and catch up in case you have fallen behind. So for this week, what you have to do is obviously read the assignment in the textbook, read the article that is already on Blackboard, do the blog that I will send, and then I am going to send you a link of a 28-page paper. It is very clear, very simple, and it contains all the details that you'd need concerning the major issues that are used by environmentalists whenever they critique mainstream economics. The basic two issues, as we've gone over many times, are really the standard paradigm, the view. They do not think that the view of the standard economics, the circular model view, is an accurate one, because it does not take nature into consideration. But then they go ahead and they disagree also with the national income accounting. They claim, and rightly so, that the national income accounts are really not a measure of welfare. Economists always come back by saying that it was never meant to be as a measurement of welfare. But unfortunately, whether it was meant to be that way or not, that is besides the issue. Because the GDP and the GDP per capita are being used constantly by politicians, by economists, by the press, by most people, as being a measure of welfare. And so there have been many efforts in order to try and refine that particular concept. Not to just throw it away totally. Nobody is saying that it isn't important at all. But what is being said is that it does not measure the correct things. It measures both the goods and the bads. It does not go ahead and deduct the bads. Maybe the single most important idea really is to develop what is known as an EDP, which is an environmentally adjusted net domestic product. That's to say, whether it's the ISEW or the GPI or any other effort to correct the GDP, essentially what they want to do is to say that, okay, so we're going to take the GDP and we're going to deduct from it the depreciation, which we always do, because always the GDP minus the depreciation is equal to the NDP. But then we stop at that. Environmentalists are saying in order to get an accurate picture, then what must be done is to go ahead and correct for the depreciation of the natural goods, natural capital. And that is obviously the problem, is that there is no easy way that you can go ahead and find a decent, credible estimate of the depreciation for natural capital. But there have been many estimates, and you'll be surprised to find out that really once these things are done, then they change the actual GDP substantially. I mean, sometimes they even more than make up for all the growth, or the supposed growth in the GDP. But be that as it may, even if one isn't going to go all the way into finding a major credible estimate of the depreciation of natural capital, which one should, obviously, but even at a lower, more elementary level, there are so many different things about the GDP that are misleading. My favorite example has always been the fact that, the GDP is defined as being the money market value of the final goods and services. But yet we give ourselves the right, as to say the government, to go ahead and take certain market activities and exclude them from the GDP because they're not productive, such as second-hand goods. They are really nothing else but transfer payments. But then we take certain non-market activities and we impute their value and we add them to the GDP, which is fine. I mean, we say, for example, that all the farmers, the 1 million farmers that grow their own food, they don't go ahead and spend as much money as a regular family at the supermarkets because they butcher their own hog and they have their own chicken and they get their own vegetables and so on and so forth. So the government goes ahead and estimates what the value of these would have been. Now that's fine, but why not estimate then the value of the services of a housewife? So the University of Michigan, for example, has been requesting that we do that for a very, very long time. If we are to do that, then what will happen, do you think? I mean, let's assume for the sake of the argument, I haven't double-checked these exact figures, but let's say that there are something like 40 million traditional housewives in the country. Multiply that by an average estimate of $60,000 or $70,000, and you will wind up with a huge figure. The point is, once you have that addition, then the GDP per capita is no longer going to be 50,000, but it's going to be, let's assume, 70,000. Does that mean that it's a better quality of life? And the answer is hell no, of course it's not. It's just really one way of estimating or of defining what is the GDP. And so the environmentalists are really suggesting then that we arrive at a better way of estimating the GDP in order to reflect only the productive activities. One such measure, and we've looked at some of the graphs before, is the ISEW. I will also, in the small email tomorrow, I will give you an exact or a very rough definition of what are the basic things that are added and that are subtracted from the GDP if you use the ISEW. And what is really important about the ISEW is the fact that it's really done by Herman Daly. And Herman Daly, as again we've said before, he is really the dean of environmentalists for all practical purposes. So definitely it's an effort that is very much respected all over the world. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that this particular assignment for this week is really a very, very simple assignment. It doesn't really include that many different things, except to provide you with a simple idea of what are indicators, how do they perform, and what are the essential statistical concepts on which they are based. So again, it's an article or a chapter that is only a very quick one-time read. I will add, by the way, again, I will provide you with the graphic in the email that will explain a little bit more in depth the concept of the HDI. So if people are very much concerned about the fact that the GDP is not a good measure, then what do? Well, we've adopted the HDI, which is really an index of more than one thing. So it doesn't measure only the money contributions, but it looks at the health and it looks at the literacy. And once you look at that, you find out, as we've said before, that all of a sudden the ranking changes substantially. I'm not going to bore you again with that, but maybe I'll mention also a couple of lines about the rankings, at least of the two countries that I double-checked for you last night, both the Saudi Arabia and Cuba for 2012. You'll find out Saudi Arabia is 59, Cuba is 58, although Saudi Arabia's GDP per capita is about 4 or a little bit more than 4 times that of Cuba. And definitely what that shows is that there are very many countries that are below Cuba that have GDP per capita that are way, way, way above Cuba. But Cuba makes up for that by having a decent, a very efficient healthcare system and a good educational system. The only other thing that I wanted to mention is that, again, I will give you also a list, and we'll never come back to this again, of the 59 different indicators that are used by the UN whenever they speak about the issue of human development and of sustainability. So with that, I will send you most of these details and the links and what have you, and spell out the times for the exam tomorrow with an email, and I will post something for the blog. We won't post anything for the blog, and there won't be even a reading assignment for the week after, so that you'll be able to ready yourself for the midterm, which will be at the end of the week though, and not at the beginning of the week, to give you, again, really 4 more days in order to catch up with the readings if you have to. Okay? With that, let me bid you farewell then. Bye-bye.